Drugs and their financial system. The drug trade, a globalized market and world haunted by violence and death, so often glamorized by images of narco culture. The history of drug trafficking goes back at least 100 years, across many continents, leaving the most vicious savagery in its wake. Yet drug trafficking doesn't belong to a particular country. It forms its own country. It's a dark territory that stands apart with its own codes, laws, culture, religion, values, and economy. It has celebrities too, and tens and thousands of victims, and a network of lawyers.
I carry out the cartel's legal defense, but I'm not the cartel's lawyer. We do not have a diploma to defend either nuns nor saints. We have a diploma to defend criminals. That's the beauty of it. The guiltier a person is, the better it is.
No, it doesn't bother me that they call me the devil's advocate. I always answer, where is that scumbag Bulbazeth, Satan, and Lucifer? I've never met him.
No matter what crimes are committed, there's always some lawyer figure defending the biggest names in organized crime. The lawyer goes from the shadows to the spotlight, walking the fine line between the most barbaric crimes and the right to a fair trial. He or she is a ferryman between worlds, a strange mediator who represents before the law those who destroy all codes of the human condition. Lawyer and criminal. A unique relationship, revolving around truth. This truth is the foundation of the entire defense system, but it isn't the same truth as in a police investigation, or the one presented during a trial, or the truth of journalists. This truth solely belongs to the lawyer and his or her client. The defense lawyer is not only their sole contact, but also the one who brings their truth before justice.
The mafioso, the criminal, does not exist. It is a man, a person. I don't mind how many crimes or sins he has committed. If he doesn't reveal his true self to you, you cannot defend him. Because the first thing you have to tell him is that you do not want any surprises. Aside from this great criminal, you will get to know the child, the naked being, the person stripped down, someone standing before you with nothing to hide. It's sublime. That is why he's asking for your help.
Ever since I was a child, I wanted to become a lawyer, but not any criminal lawyer. My dear grandma said that lawyers would go to hell, and almost my entire family was opposed to it. They would tell me, lawyers are either thieves or liars who will never be saved. One morning, I woke up and told my mom, I'll become a lawyer and go to hell. Coming from a family of farmers, without economic resources, having the power of defending the world's greatest criminal does not happen to just anyone.
We say that every major criminal holds up a mirror to their society, and that every lawyer reflects the legal system they work in. Defending a drug trafficker, then, is always a border crossing between two worlds. Since drug trafficking is everywhere, these questions are raised every time, in every country. Who then is the lawyer in these often ambiguous territories of the law? In the end, which truth are they serving?
Criminal defense, it's a lot about performing, in the sense that, you have an audience, it's the judge and the jury, and you are performing and you're selling a story. The prosecution is selling a story, you're selling a story. It's your job to convince, right, these people which story to buy at the end of the day. My client is going to always be a person that being judged in a negative way. When the rest of the world has given this person, has turned its back on this person, it is very satisfying for me to know that I'm that one person that this, client can still trust. To me, it's just beautiful. I bet that person that says that I am the devil's attorney would want an attorney like me in their corner if, God forbid, they were going through the same thing.
When you cross the street, look at both sides, right? Because you don't know where the hit is coming from. Obviously, it's not easy work. You can't just hire anyone to defend a major criminal. You need to have presence and really care about the case. I have almost become a fanatic of my own professional performance. I practice criminal law. That is my field. I could not defend Mother Teresa. She defends herself because she has the direct connection with the great Lord of the universe.
It's mafiosos who have chosen me to be their lawyer. And that feels right and fair, considering the fact that the lawyer-client relationship is like a marriage, in that both sides agree to it based on tastes, interests, sensibilities, and affinities.
Throughout his life, Pablo Escobar, the most iconic Colombian drug trafficker, had the same lawyer, Gustavo Salazar Pineda. The codes shared between the defending lawyer and the accused were based on a relationship of loyalty and exclusivity.
You hire a lawyer, not just anyone, the one you choose and the one you want. Do not forget, we end up being the priest to these people. We become confessors to the criminals. That relationship is so profound, so intimate, that if there is no trust, no empathy, no love, I can't imagine defending a case if I don't love the case, love the client, and love the truth above all. The first thing I tell them is, tell me the truth, so I can lie to the jury.
Medellin, Colombia. The city from which Pablo Escobar ruled over the world of organized crime. The city and the country continue to be haunted by the figure of the former cartel leader, shot dead in December 1992.
The main ideology of our movement is based on civicism, nationalism, social, ecological, and athletic programs.
He had a political career as a member of the House of Representatives. He murdered journalists, politicians, started a bloody war between the Colombian cartels, and undertook the construction of many hospitals, schools, and churches to clean up his image. A neighborhood bears the name of Pablo Escobar, and there are 2 museums filled with his photos, objects, and wax statues recording him for a kind of cartoonish posterity. His motto has become an omnipresent slogan in narco culture: Plato o plomo, money or bullets.
Drug traffickers and drug lords work hand in hand with corrupt politicians. One day I was asked, at what point did Pablo corrupt the politicians? The real question is, at what point did the politicians corrupt the narcos? The only thing people say about Pablo is that he killed, that he was a murderer, that he was a butcher. But what people don't say is that he was a fair man and had a soul of a judge. He was an ethical man. Pablo Escobar, for example, had a characteristic. He liked criminals. The ones they protected the most were the hitmen. A hitman was paid 500 million per death. For a lawyer, 100 million was already a lot of money. For them, horses and hitmen came first.
If Colombia is the birthplace of the Escobar myth, Mexico is that of the cartel empire. The country has become the main hub for contemporary drug trafficking, featuring romantic characters like Amado Carrillo Fuentes, considered one of the most powerful and discreet drug traffickers in history. He was the leader of the Tijuana cartel and died in 1997 after plastic surgery meant to change his appearance. He created a fleet of airplanes loaded with Colombian cocaine that he would get to crash on American soil in order to recover their contents. That's why his nickname was El Señor de los Cielos, Lord of the Skies. During his short reign, Armando Carrillo Fuentes was above everyone. He was a cunning billionaire. He could buy police officers, judges, generals, and politicians at will. His lawyer was one of the most important criminal lawyers in Mexico, Rogelio de la Garza.
He was a very smart person. The authorities even admit that. He was a person who he understood when I'd tell him I couldn't defend him on legal grounds. So he would look for other avenues so I could defend him properly. People said that he was a violent man. From what I saw, he wasn't a violent person. Not to my knowledge. He was a person who negotiated and did not use weapons to generate fear. When you meet one of these people who, according to urban legends, are evil incarnate, when you meet them, you realize that they are not so bad. But I did see, for example, how they helped the people in their villages. They allowed those with health problems to get proper treatment. I saw normal people helping other people. It was difficult to believe what the public opinion said, what the media said about them. It wasn't, well, in the TV series, now they say it, bullets everywhere. I didn't believe that they were the bad guys they all said they were. Spending time with these major criminals, I got to know them to better defend them. You begin to see where the truth is, the lie, where the falsehood is, where the fiction is. Because a lot has also been said. According to urban legends, many politicians were involved with narcos. So you learn a lot about who is who in the story.
The myth of the good drug trafficker is so well maintained that it survives the violence that comes with the territory. And this violence can even become an asset to bolster their fame.
Society tends to turn these criminals into heroes, as we saw in Italy in the 80s with the Italian mafia. It's a situation that we see more and more in music, movies, and television. Drug traffickers are painted as heroic figures.
The criminal, the major criminal, is an artist and he knows it. He raises crime to an art form. For example, there is a study on Goya that says he was a violent man, a fighter. The narcos, these alleged murderers, and these mafia bosses have a soul and behave in ways similar to artists. They have a code of ethics and an aesthetic of crime. They are provocative and they are irreverent. They have a high self-esteem. They have very big personalities. To be a capo, you need, as the Argentinians say, to have balls. That's the capo. The capo is great, and El Chapo and everybody in Mexico learned from the Colombians.
If there's a place on Earth where myth and reality get mixed up, it's here, in the thick of drug trafficking, where everything started. The Mexican region of Sinaloa, stronghold of the cartel of the same name, and its leader, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. He was the last emperor of his kingdom of power and blood. Extradited to the United States in 2017 and sentenced to life imprisonment in 2019. Guzman was leading one of the most extensive organized crime networks in modern history. He is responsible for as many deaths as there are legends about him. He didn't have only one lawyer, but an army of lawyers, among the most prestigious in several countries.
We represent his ears, eyes, and voices. Sometimes he is someone very educated, cultured, and respectful. Nothing like what people say about who Joaquin Guzman really is.
He's a very respectful person, very respectful, always concerned about others. He's a very ignorant person, particularly ignorant, so much so that at some point I even doubted we were talking about the same person. He loved show business, he loved television, he loved being the center of attention. It was something that he really loved.
A lot of things were said in the press that painted him as a monster. Once, I told a magistrate, I know the image Mr. Guzman has in the newspapers and on television, but you have to judge this case based on evidence. And all we know for certain is his confession, saying that he's a farmer who grows corn in Culiacan, and it may be something you can laugh about, but that is what it is. Everything else is pure conjecture. Even if society is convinced of his guilt, there is no proof.
Working with that kind of client, especially Joaquin Guzman, it's important to be loyal, honest, respectful, and friendly, like I am. You need to be very discreet, and you can never lie to them. It is something that is fundamental for them.
From note-taker, I became Joaquin Guzman's lawyer. I was admiring these great characters on television, these great Mexican jurists, and today, I appear on television alongside these legends. It changed my life.
Behind the stream of romanticized images circulated by TV series, there are criminal networks that develop illegal international markets that generate billions of dollars every year and answer to the core philosophy of organized crime, namely that of conquest by occupying territories, first a street, then a neighborhood, and in the end, a country. The more a state is disorganized, the more organized crime can take root. That's how organized crime mutated into a worldwide industry whose markets extend far beyond drugs.
The Office of the Attorney General of Mexico gets an F in fighting organized crime. I mean, it's been completely absent from the fight against organized crime. It is ineffective. Concrete numbers that I can mention indicate that between 2.5, I repeat, between 2.5 and about 3% of the total investigation files that the Attorney General's office has classified as organized crime, between 2.5 and 3% of those investigation files get prosecuted, and the rest of the 97.5% of those investigation files are paralyzed.
Alberto Woolrich is one of the most famous criminal lawyers in Mexico. He is president of the Criminal Law Academy of the Bar Association and the spearhead of the battle between the justice system and the drug trade. He embodies an idea symbolized by the owl, the emblem of the legal profession.
Each one of these owls that you see here is a sign of gratitude from someone. It reminds me of the case that I had to defend and the case that was resolved, fortunately, in a positive way. For us, it has a special symbolism. The owl always keeps its eyes open, just like us lawyers, who must always keep our eyes open to detect any injustice, any question of corruption, and process all these acts according to the law. Justice is the main pillar of the state sovereignty. Therefore, it is imperative that lawyers who are dedicated to dispensing justice honor the road that is given to them.
Resisting the attraction exerted by drug trafficking is a difficult task, whether the pull is coming from money, power, or various pressures. One can rise to the top of the art of criminal defense while falling to the bottom of the moral ladder. It's the temptation that makes the lawyer a potential prey.
Well, I think there are two types of lawyers. Firstly, the lawyers who do their duty defending any person, including drug traffickers, within an ethical and legal framework. And then the lawyers who get involved in the activities of the criminal organization. Unfortunately, many of them have been killed because they have been considered part of those cartels.
These lawyers, who often mix with these criminals, become something like modern heroes. The lawyer is the sole upholder of the law, shaken by a staggering paradox. Where is the line between good and evil, between truth and lies? Is it possible to avoid blurring this line? Ricardo Ravelo has met some of the most prominent of what we call narco-lawyers. Unrivaled investigator, threatened with death many times by organized crime. To this day, Ricardo Ravelo has written the only report on the world of lawyers governed by money, power, corruption, and of course, death.
What moves these people to take on a drug trafficker's case? I see an unconscious drive for fame and power. They like the danger. There are some of them who even try to mimic their clients so much that they even feel like capos themselves at times. They live in this world. They feel like capos, driving in armored cars with armed bodyguards, suitcases of money, luxurious offices, going to swanky places, meeting with very beautiful women. They mimic their clients. Narco-lawyers clearly see themselves as drug lords, like they belong to this world, to this powerful organization. Their involvement goes beyond criminal defense. In many cases, they become part of the criminal organizations. They take care of their clients' property, ranches, cars, to ensure the well-being of the criminal organization. They are all good friends. It's a game of interests and alliances.
All this dazzles them. They dedicate themselves to activities in order to please the organization. It is a known fact that many talented students in law school are enrolled and financed by the cartels to finish their studies. They pay them their specialization so that they can dedicate themselves to defend the interests of organized crime. Those lawyers are the ones who earn great fortunes. Fortunes in millions of dollars. I once got an offer from a lawyer working for the Attorney General's office of Mexico. After allegedly investigating the conduct of a drug trafficker, he wanted me to take over the man's defense. He had minimized the charges so the judge would set the man free. In exchange for my services, he had offered to pay me $1 million. Obviously, I rejected the proposal.
It's likely that a lot of these lawyers are part of the criminal network. It's a significant problem Mexico does not have control over. Neither the state nor the bar associations, like you'd see in any other democracy, where the state fights to keep lawyers away from the lures of organized crime, where officially they are paid $500 an hour, but unofficially they get $10,000 an hour.
When in service of major drug traffickers, criminal lawyers always stand on shaky ground.
Today I consider Mr. Guzman a friend, and he sees me that way too. But even if I'm his friend, and he's been charged in the United States, I'm not part of his network. There's a fine line between right and wrong in life. The high-level members of organized crime we defend often try to use persuasion to get us to do things that fall outside the law. I want to write a book on that point. How to stay in the good path and not to be involved in the path of evil.
As long as things are done correctly, as lawyers, that we defend people properly without trying to lie to legal authorities, and tricking them, cheating them through fraud. Everything should be fine. There is a very thin line, a very fine line of risks. You have to have a lot of knowledge and experience to be able to know how not to unintentionally overstep that line.
There is a song that says, "Some birds cross swamps without getting muddy." Crime pays whatever it takes. They have plenty of money, and above all, they have it in cash, in any currency. It's very tempting, and an irresponsible lawyer will ask for millions of dollars, but won't be able to keep his promises. A lot of lawyers end up killed. Money is very nice, but at what price? Then, by defending certain narcos, they end up becoming accomplices, messengers between prison and the outside world. In about 10 years, we've counted around 800 lawyers killed by organized crime.
In reality, most narco-lawyers in Mexico get murdered for one of three fundamental reasons. One is the fact that they charge too much money, and then they fail to fulfill all their commitments. A second cause is that they take advantage of the fact that their clients are still in jail, and that's when they decide to have affairs with their wives. The third reason is, when another criminal group finds out that the Chapo is about to get out of jail, thanks to the work of the defense, the first thing they do is assassinate the lawyer.
My husband was a lawyer. At the beginning, he practiced family law. Later, already in the last part of his career, he got into criminal affairs. In the blink of an eye, our whole lives changed. From renting a property, we had a house. And not only one house, we went on vacations. We had cars, a lot of comfort. We were living a luxurious life, but we didn't have him. He started to take us away from him, from his life. His life was no longer with us. We didn't know who his life belonged to. The only thing that he would say to me was, after this, we are going to leave. We're going to start a new life, because it wasn't a life. I think it was getting involved in these kinds of cases and defending criminals that led to his death. It's something I'm still trying to erase from my memory, seeing his body there, tortured with a bullet wound. My husband was killed by, yes, organized crime. But he was also killed by his inexperience, his ego, and his will to have power. He got killed by this corrupt society that continues to grow. I think if anyone is guilty for my husband's death, he is the first to be blamed for taking bad decisions and for defending this type of person who sells drugs or who sells weapons or who kills people. He thought that he was going to have money and a luxurious life, but he forgot that we existed and that we would be left with nothing and without him.
If I am alive today, it is because I've never crossed over from being a lawyer to being a messenger or accomplice. I was their lawyer, not their slave. I was the man who, like lionesses, defend them in trial, but not as an accomplice. When you get into this, you don't think if they are going to kill you, or if the police will show up. It's a possibility, but that's the beauty of the profession. You walk along the edge of the abyss. I always say, when you live life with intensity, it gains in value. The most difficult episodes with clients are when you visit them in hiding. They put you in a car. They hold you for 3 hours. They take you to an apartment. They take you down to another one. They put you in a car. You go around the city for 5 hours. Then they drive you to the village, and after 3 to 4 hours, you end up in a camp with 600 people and almost everyone is armed. It's like a movie. an insane felony film. But actually, it's more fascinating than scary. You do feel fear, but the day the fear takes over, you die.
Anything goes, even threats to judges and to the police. Every day, the power of drug traffic increases, and not just in its capacity to destroy. It's taking over political authority and replacing it with the rule of force, where guns rule all. Being neighbors with the US has many advantages, but it's unfortunately the largest consumer market in the world for narcotics. That is life. And how many years has it been? 15?
Today, Raul Gonzalez Rayon is a rich man thanks to the invention of a drink famous on both sides of the border. Yet, nothing suggested that this would be his fate. In another life, he was one of the most respected customs officers. He could detect arms contraband like no one else. But the assassination of one of his sons by organized crime turned his life upside down. He distanced himself from this environment, but nothing would ever erase the agony and consequences of this corruption.
Well, they used to call me the metal detector for all the weapons that I found. In every customs office I went to, they recognized me. Here in Juarez, commanders came and went, but I stayed put. I could perceive this smell, this wet hay smell. People would give off this smell. It's a gift that I have. It's the smell of people's fear that I could pick up on as soon as they walked in. Their bodies would give off this odor that I could smell. Never in my life will I go back into customs work, ever.
Why not?
It's different now. You know, even the police is afraid. Some police have become corrupt.
In these territories, nothing is even further away from justice than the victim. Tens of thousands of innocents, people who were minding their own business, become targets when caught between the interests of drug traffickers, police, army, state, or banks. They die every year so cruelly and anonymously in the dark underbelly of organized crime. The police are there, but turn a blind eye. And in the courts, few sentences manage to officialize their tragedy. Everything is sacrificed in the name of a virus, narco-politics, which in turn becomes narco-justice, narco-police. In this context, the defense lawyer becomes a figure caught in an endless spiral.
Narco-politics have taken over. Many of our politicians are associated with criminal groups precisely to bring cocaine into the country and export it to the United States. This obviously benefits criminal lawyers who are in charge of investigating these types of matters. They can get their clients freed and left unpunished. Often, the lawyers take part in corrupting people. Many judges, ministers, and court magistrates sell their conscience to the highest bidder. Defense attorneys take advantage of their weaknesses to get their clients freed.
Organized crime controls our institutions and our government, but it's beginning to become public knowledge. The wolves are in the sheepfold. It's an open secret. Because the police have ties to organized crime, that's where we are at. That makes the lawyer's job more difficult and puts them in danger. Because of the corruption of the Mexican policing system, many people die.
I worked in the mafia for a long time. Most of my life. It's a job like any other, like working in a government. They take advantage of our ignorance. We have rights, but we just don't know them. They put the blame on us for whatever they like. They exaggerate the seriousness of the offense. They always lay it on thick. If they catch you with a good, nice gun, they keep it and give you an old gun. But they stick you with the same charges. They fill in the minutes however they want. They write whatever they want to harm you. You're alone with them? You only get to see a lawyer in prison. Until then, the only people you see work for the state. If you want to avoid prison, they try and get money from you. If you don't have any, then you're sent to jail.
Paying for freedom. This corruption of the system crawls like ivy along several levels of legal institutions. A case in point, the escape of the most modern and iconic drug traffickers, Joaquin Guzman, alias El Chapo. He loved freedom, and the state helped him get it. El Chapo managed to escape from Mexican prisons 3 times. The most spectacular was the last one, in 2015, when he fled from his tiny cell monitored by cameras in the Puente Grande prison. No one saw anything, and he was able to gain freedom through a tunnel that opened right into his cell.
El Chapo's escape was operated by one of his lawyers. This story, that the tunnel was secretly dug, today we know that the tunnel was dug by the National Water Commission. Everyone was working together, the judiciary, the prison, and a state-owned company.
Thanks to a proliferation of images and stories, El Chapo was recaptured a few months later. The same state that opened the doors to his freedom flaunted him like a trophy once he was recaptured.
A reward of £2.4 million is on offer for information on Chapo's recapture that produces billions of dollars every year. In parts of Mexico, El Chapo enjoys a folk hero status.
And since it was likely that he would escape again, El Chapo Guzman was sent where no one escapes. He was extradited to the United States.
It was a media stunt. He was already sentenced from the moment he started this trial. His trial was a sham. It was a tribute to Donald Trump. It was a tribute to the king. I believe in the law, and I love law. And in this case, the law was clearly violated to the extreme. When a state requests the extradition of a person from another country, in this case Mexico, if the person has trials pending, as Mr. Guzman did, they cannot extradite him. They don't have the right to do so, because he had trials pending in Mexico. What Mr. Guzman always asked for, and he said this to me, was to be treated like anyone else. He did not have a fair trial. He did not have an adequate defense. I think all of this was planned, all rigged, an offering to the king, arranged between two governments.
How can it be that a prosecutor in Brooklyn has access to recordings, photos, and transaction records, while the Mexican government doesn't have the shadow of an investigation? There is very little that a U.S. prosecutor's office can do, as it cannot replace Mexican institutions. In Mexico, there is a pact of impunity between politicians and the mafia. Nobody can replace Mexico, its society, or its sovereign state to fight organized crime in its own political system.
In the United States, the Chapo Guzman trial involved another protagonist, his wife, Emma Coronel, the first wife of a drug trafficker to hand herself over to the justice system of another country. She participated in her husband's trial. Then, the American judges were very lenient and sentenced her to 3 years in prison. Her young lawyer, Mariel Colon, prepared the trial by playing the media card, interviews, reality TV shows, and El Chapo Guzman's clothing brand. All the ingredients to feed the legal machine with images.
All of my high-profile cases have been tough in terms of, how to deal with the press and in terms of what the press is saying about my clients. There's a lot out there, and every article about them, especially for Guzman, has never been a positive article. With Miss Coronel, Chapo's wife, it's a little bit different.
Estados Unidos se me hace buena elección.
She's younger. She's a mother of 2 daughters who unfortunately, just was in the wrong time, wrong circumstances, whatever the case is. So it's been a little easier on her, or for us, in terms of everything that entails, representing her and dealing with the press, because they're 2 different players.
The extradition of a drug trafficker is a taboo topic, as much for the state who extradites, since it has to renounce its own laws. As for the drug trafficker himself, the Colombian Pablo Escobar, for example, said, "I prefer a grave in Colombia than a prison in the United States."
People see drug lords as charming millionaires, but behind closed doors, they're children. To the point that, for example, when the main capos of the Medellin cartel went to the prosecutor's office, they fell apart, and I told them, "You're very good for killing, bombing, or transporting tons of cocaine, but to face a prosecutor, you are absolutely weak." I said, "You are like dogs. As a pack, you bark. Alone, you hide under the bed." My clients made money, killed each other, and ended up in prison or extradited. I used the money to live well. He who makes money is smart. He who uses it well is wise.
In places where it has conquered territories, organized crime does as it pleases. In truth, it isn't fought against. It prospers thanks to a fiction coordinated by the state itself, private interests, and the political world. Banks, finance, police, justice are often allies or pawns within its clutches. The war against drug trafficking is hypocritical. It's a fake battle featuring bad guys sporting hats and pistols, powder and blood dandies concealing the truth. An ironic curiosity of this war. Can you think of any American drug traffickers?
In the case of this war, as it's a war with criminal organizations, the main weapon that they use is propaganda. And then, of course, you have the written novels, films, and shows on narcos. Social media use it as well. It's all just an illusion. Gentlemen, you can either accept my business or suffer the consequences. Silver or lead. And I would add that these characters, who have become so popular, have been put forward by the organizations as a facade, so they can go about business as usual while we are entertained. The war taking place before our eyes is between organizations running similar businesses, fighting over territory. It is a war that, unlike other wars, where there is a formal declaration and an invading army, this war happens beneath our feet. This war devours us, even if we don't see it on a daily basis, and yet it is as deadly as traditional wars. Members of organized crime, the men with guns you see in the newspapers, are grunt workers. The leaders of organized crime in Mexico and Colombia are politicians and businessmen, protected by judges and attorneys. They're the top of the pyramid. We're asking the state to fight against itself. I am convinced that the driving force behind organized crime, the heart of organized crime in Mexico, is politics. It's not El Chapo Guzman. That's why we consider Mexico a mafiocracy more than a democracy.
The only time I didn't think I'd live to see another day was when an official summoned me to his office and told me to drop the case that I was defending at the time for political reasons. I thought to myself, will I get out of this alive? That's the only time I was worried. It was a difficult time because I was dealing with the highest level of power, the top of the Mexican government.
In the drug trafficker cemetery, graves are erected like castles belonging to a secret dynasty. True palaces to kings to immortalize the homes of criminals. The entertainment business makes TV series, songs, movies, and writes biographies about them, while the victims have not yet been granted justice. Graves so very different from those unnamed innocent victims. Civil society is dying, almost invisibly, in silence, while this human tragedy engulfs the entire world before our unseeing eyes. This colonization of crime is lurking. It infiltrates everywhere, without the law being there to deliver justice. It's not exclusive to Mexico or Colombia. In the end, where organized crime has taken root, the truth the lawyer holds can't even be used to grant victims the justice and reparation the state owes them. The only thing that lives on in memory is the legend of the drug trafficker.
If you want to talk about crime, I say to the authorities, talk to the mirror. You'll be surprised by what you see. That's it. Now silence.